delighted to introduce you to the Kenari Quartet. One is flat out amazing. They're incredible ambassadors for chamber music. They were winners both in 2013 and 2015, top prize winners in our competition, and have gone on to take the chamber music world by storm. They met at Indiana University's Jacobs School of Music down in Bloomington, and I am so delighted to invite these incredible musicians and dedicated citizen artists that are ambassadors. Please welcome the Kenari Quartet.
Good morning!
Good morning!
My name is Bob Eason, and I play the soprano saxophone in the Kenari Quartet. How many of you have ever seen a saxophone before? Wow, that's incredible! Well, I wanted to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about my saxophone and a specific part of it, and also to show you what it sounds like when I play. So, this right here is a very small, thin piece of wood from a bamboo plant called a reed. Can everyone say reed?
Reed.
It sounds like if you were going to read a book, but it's spelled just a little bit differently. And so, when I blow air into my instrument, the reed wiggles back and forth really fast, and that's what creates the sound of the saxophone. A little bit like this.
Hello and good afternoon, or morning, everyone. It is so nice to meet you. Thank you all so much for spending some time here with us and allowing us to share some music with you, to talk a little bit about, of course, the saxophone, and later, of course, do our live rendition of my very favorite book in the whole wide world, which we'll get to a little bit later. But first, I wanted to continue talking a little bit about the saxophone. Now, Bob introduced the soprano saxophone. I would like to introduce you to the alto saxophone. Now, if you were to look at my instrument and look at Bob's instrument, is my instrument bigger or smaller? Bigger, very good. I heard some bigger out there. So, if you were to take a guess, would the sounds out of my instrument be higher or lower? Higher. I heard a lot of highers. The actual answer would be lower, okay? Because my instrument is bigger, there is more space for my air to move through, and I produce a lower sound. I want you to keep that in mind, okay? Because we're going to continue talking about the horns a little bit later. Now, Bob also introduced a very special component of the saxophone called the reed. Remember that little piece of wood that wiggles back and forth really, really fast? Well, if you were to take that little piece of wood and just blow on it, well, nothing would happen. You're just blowing on a little piece of wood. But if you take that little piece of wood and you put it on one of these, this is called a mouthpiece. Can everybody say mouthpiece? Mouthpiece. Excellent. This is where all the sound starts. All the sound starts here and then works its way through the rest of the horn. But if I were to just play the mouthpiece, it's going to sound a little silly. It's going to sound a little wild. Has anyone here ever seen or heard of a kazoo before? Yeah, a couple? Excellent. Now, this isn't a kazoo, but it kind of sounds like one. Kind of like this. Whoa. It's super wild and crazy, right? But if I take that mouthpiece and I put it on the instrument, like mine is, you can actually get some very pretty, soft, and lyrical sounds. So I'd like to demonstrate some of that for you now.
Hi everyone, my name is Corey, and the saxophone that I play is called the tenor saxophone. Now my instrument is even bigger than Kyle's instrument is. So because it's bigger, does that mean it's going to make higher sounds or lower sounds? Lower. Lower, exactly. I have even more instrument than Kyle does, so even more space for my air to travel, and so I can play even lower notes than Kyle can. Now we've also been talking about the different parts of the saxophone. We talked about the reed, we talked about the mouthpiece, but there's also this one last piece up here that's separate from the rest of the instrument. Now, if you think about body parts, if you think about a person, right, and your head is up here, if the rest of your body is down there, what connects your head to your body?
The neck.
Your neck, right? So just like on a person, on the saxophone, the neck is the part of the instrument that connects the mouthpiece and the reed to the rest of the instrument. Now, I could also make a sound on just this by itself. It doesn't sound quite as crazy as what Kyle played on the mouthpiece alone, but it's still kind of limited. So it kind of almost sounds like a little mini saxophone, right? It gets closer to that tone and that timbre, but I can only really play that one note, and that's no fun. I want to use all these cool keys and gadgets on my instrument to make all the amazing sounds and pitches that a saxophone can make. So I use my neck to connect my reed and mouthpiece to the rest of my instrument, and now I have a fully assembled saxophone. Now I will play a short little excerpt to demonstrate the tenor saxophone for you all.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Steven, and I play the baritone saxophone, otherwise known as your new favorite saxophone. As we've been going down the group, you can see here that I have the biggest instrument, so it is definitely playing the lowest notes of the entire group. Now, I know it's a Saturday, it's a weekend, you thought you might be off of school, but there's going to be a pop quiz. I hope you're ready, okay? So, Bob introduced us to that little piece of bamboo that wiggles back and forth really, really fast. Can anyone, you can yell it out, tell me what that piece is called?
Reed.
Yes! Very, very good. That's the reed. Amazing, amazing. Now, we take that reed and we put it onto what Kyle introduced us to, which the reed vibrates against, and it creates that crazy sound. What was that part called? Okay, yes, that's the mouthpiece. Wow, very smart. Fantastic. Okay, now we take the mouthpiece and we put it onto this next piece that Corey introduced us to that connects to the rest of the body. So it connects our head to our body. What was that piece called? Amazing, very good. Okay, and just like on a human body, we call the rest of the saxophone the body of the instrument. Now, the baritone saxophone, I like to think of it almost like playing like in a string quartet, and I try to play sometimes like a cello. So I'll give you a little brief demonstration of what the baritone saxophone can sound like. Thank you. So now We're very excited to actually introduce you to the saxophone quartet altogether. We take the soprano saxophone and the alto saxophone and the tenor saxophone and baritone saxophone together, and we unite our powers to create the saxophone quartet. We hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much. We love playing that short little piece, and we hope that you enjoyed it too. And as Stephen shared, that is an example of all four horns working together as a team or a unit, or in this case, a family, right? To produce something very special to us and how we communicate with our audiences. Now, what's really cool about that piece is that piece was written a long time ago, over 100 years ago, before the saxophone was even around. That piece was actually originally written for piano. And we took that music and we translated it to the saxophone. So the saxophone is really cool because it can play all different genres, it can make different sounds, and it can play across time. We can play music that was written hundreds of years ago. And also, what's really cool about the saxophone is that there are still people, a couple of which may be standing up here right now, that are still writing music for it today, right now. As we sit here, there is someone out there writing some new music for saxophone. That's really cool. So now we're going to play another little piece that shows all of us working together, but this time we're going to play a piece of music that was written very recently, just in the past few years. And it's going to sound a little different, okay? And also, as you are listening, I want you to be thinking about, how is this music making me feel? Does this music remind me of anything? Does it make me think of a story? Does it make me think of a book? Maybe a picture? Or maybe a car trip with your family? I like to ask of you to think of, how is this music making me feel and what is it reminding me of? Can we do that?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We hope that you enjoy this next short little piece.
Thank you so much. It's just thrilling for us to be here in South Bend and to play this music for you and to show you our musical version of Malcolm Mitchell's book, my very favorite book in the whole wide world. I'm curious though, as we were playing, did any of your imaginations just run wild to different things? How many of you thought monsters, or dinosaurs, or cartoons, or maybe a cat chasing a mouse? The wonderful thing about music and books is that our imaginations can just run wild. And I mean, really, truly, the things that we think of are the cool part. And that's what makes it such a fun thing to do as musicians, but also as readers and listeners. So, let's think about this book for a little bit. How many of you have read this book? Has anyone? Okay, a few hands. So, we can talk about it just a little bit. This book, my very favorite book in the whole wide world, is about a young boy named Henley. Can everyone say Henley?
Henley.
So Henley goes on this adventure trying to find his very favorite book in the whole wide world. And he reads this, and he reads that. But he just doesn't find what he's looking for. Nothing really grasps and holds on to his attention, enough so that he could call it his very favorite book. He goes to a library, he goes to a bookstore, he just can't find it. So what does he do? He writes his own book, and he creates his own story. And we thought that was such a cool idea. And in fact, what we're going to be doing, as we act out this book, we're going to be playing our own music. Stephen, our baritone saxophonist, wrote music for us to play, and we're also going to improvise, which means that we're going to make it up right here in front of you as we go along. So, I think we're just about ready. We hope that you enjoy our musical version of my very favorite book in the whole wide world. Before we get going, earlier I said my name was Bob, but in this story, I'll be playing the role of Mama.
Earlier, I said my name is Kyle, but no longer. In this version, I am going to be playing the nice librarian.
And my name is Corey, but in this play, I will be playing the teacher, Mrs. Joy, and also the bookshop owner, Mrs. Rackley.
And I know I said I was Steven, but can anyone guess who I might be?
Henley.
Yes, I'll be playing Henley. This, my friends, is a story about finding my very favorite book in the whole wide world. But it wasn't as easy as it sounds. Reading can be hard, you know. Once upon a time, everyone thought I hated to read, but that's not true. Yes, some words are too big. Some sentences are too long. And when I'm supposed to be reading homework, I'd rather play football in the backyard. And when I'm asked to read the cookbook to help make dinner, I'd rather see how many grapes I could fit into my mouth, for example. 14, by the way. In some books, there are just so many pages and sentences. They just go on and on. I do try. But some books are so giant, if I stood on them, I'd turn into a giant. Other books are so boring, I'd rather use them as pillows. Kind of like these guys, going on and on, saying nothing. In other books, the pictures, they just have zero to do with cool things I like. or with what's inside of me.
One time, Henley took a wagon full of books to the town swimming pool to see how well they could swim. But books don't swim, do they? And other times, Henley read books about dinosaurs, but they made his brain hurt, so he gave the books back to the dinosaurs.
And so, Henley tried reading books about dinosaurs, mountains, pickles, aliens, and monsters, cats chasing mice, and mice chasing cats. He even found a book about cats chasing mice up a mountain while aliens and monsters ate pickles together. But none of those books made reading any easier or more fun. They just made Henley's brain hurt. But everything changed when Mrs. Joy gave the worst homework assignment ever.
Find your very favorite book in the whole wide world and bring it to class tomorrow. It can be a book about anything, but just make sure that you love it because you'll be sharing it with the class.
Oh, no. That school bell sounded like 100 horns blaring in my ears. Thinking about that yucky homework assignment, it gave me a super headache and made my hands sweaty. But there's gotta be someone who can help me.
On the way home from school, Henley stopped by the mighty library, hoping to find his very favorite book in the whole wide world. And when he got there, his friends rushed on in ahead of him. But sometimes, when it comes to books, Henley's not so fast. Inside, there was a nice library man sitting behind a jumbo-sized desk, and Henley knew that he would be able to help him find his very favorite book in the whole wide world.
And so he did. He helped and he showed Henley books about science, adventure, and squishy animals. He'd flip through pages of books about flags and farms and holidays. And he'd find plenty of books with big twisty words and sentences as long as Henley's legs, and pictures that tangled the pages. Those gave Henley the heebie-jeebies. But when Henley saw his friends sitting in the library, reading and having fun, he felt more lost than ever.
The next place that Henley tried was Mrs. Rackley's bookshop.
Mrs. Rackley, she did what she does best. She brought piles and piles of books. I looked and I looked, but there were none that I could call my very favorite. All those words and all those pages, they just made my eyes tired.
He realized it was going to take a book miracle to find his very favorite book in the whole wide world. Henley grew a sad face, and he stomped all the way home.
Later that day, Mama was unloading the clothes from the dryer. And she could tell that Henley was having just a crummy day. And so he told her about the worst homework assignment ever.
Oh. So, Mom, you know my teacher, Mrs. Joy, right? She gave us the worst homework assignment ever today. She said we had to find our very favorite book in the whole wide world. You know how it's hard for me to read? I just don't know what I'm gonna do. I went to the library, I went to Mrs. Rackley's bookshop, but they couldn't help me find the perfect book. I'll never find my very favorite book in the whole wide world.
And with a voice as warm as fresh rolls out of the oven, Mama said,
Henry, sometimes the best stories are inside us.
And after a sweet kiss on the forehead, Mama's words lit up inside of Henley. And that's when he had a brilliant idea.
The next morning, Henley could hardly wait to share his very favorite book in the whole wide world. Henley stood proud as all eyes in the reading circle stared at him.
Hear, hear, classmates. Everyone thinks I hate to read, but that's not true. Yes, some words are too big, and some sentences are too long. But that's not my biggest challenge. Before today, I just hadn't found a book I wanted to read. I hadn't found the words, or pictures, or pages, or sentences, or subjects that show me me. So, last night, I wrote a book. It's called My Very Favorite Book in the Whole Wide World. It's about a big, fat, bumpy journey to find the perfect book. My book has words, pictures, pages, sentences, and subjects that show me me, and that show you me.
As Henley began to read his story out loud for his classmates to hear, the pictures that he painted danced off of the pages.
So guys, check this out. I read books about mountains, pickles, aliens, monsters,
Oh my goodness.
cats chasing mice, mice chasing cats. Now this one is gonna blow your mind. Are you ready? Are you ready? I even found a book about cats chasing mice up a mountain while aliens eat pickles with monsters! It was a huge success. What can I say? And so you see, everyone can have a very favorite book in the whole wide world, even if they have to write it. When I was done telling my story, all of my classmates clapped and cheered. And my teacher gave me a gold star on my homework assignment. And that's the truth.
Thank you all so much for coming out to hear us this morning. You've been a wonderful audience.